Molly, 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 Molly. God damn it, Molly. We need to talk about this. Killing Floor 2 comes out tomorrow, and there are already serious concerns with the game from a lot of longtime fans. But one of the things that I was not expecting to run into was community moderators being, how do I say this politely, um, aggressive and stupid, very stupid. Um, Here we see Molly. This was 4 hours ago. And we'll get back to this, but for now, let's see what the original comment was, right? Because I need to highlight this, and there's a reason I'm making this as a response in a video instead of responding in this comment section. Because I get the feeling Molly is not going to take particularly nice to what I am saying. Um, and I would like not to get banned from the community because community moderator is fucking stupid. So basically, Sakura here says, "Oh, heavy microtransactions." Not good English, but probably not a native English speaker. Killing Force 2 had a lot of it, and some items remain locked to this day. Is this going to be one of those FOMO games? They did pin Molly's initial response. I won't deny that, but when you pin a response, you can pin a response that's wrong or misleading. And that fact is going to be important in a second. Um, we have a response, it's going to be a battle pass system like Marvel Rivals and other games. Not keen on it, yada yada yada. People are like, yeah, it's of course the game is going to have a bunch of microtransactions. It's what Tripwire does, yada yada yada. It's going to be a transaction, if not much more. Hard pass. People are very not happy about the microtransactions. But notice that nobody is really talking specifically about what it is. Then we have Rikamaru saying, it's definitely going towards what Killing Floor 2 had, like it or not, and people are engaging with it, and it was successful. And there's this comment here. I can't remember, but I think there's paid currency to spend on cosmetics in this game too. He's talking about the shop. Then we have this guy saying, cosmetics and are only on the battle passes. These don't expire. Yada yada yada. Rotating cosmetic shop you can spend the currency on. Maps, guns, and modes are not going to be paid, supposedly. I don't remember that ever being explicitly confirmed. Molly steps in at this point and then basically goes into an explanation on how the supply pass works. Here are more details about our monetization and post-launch content approach. This link does not go to what Molly says. It goes to an explanation about supply passes, not about post-launch monetization and content. The pass, by the way, is $10 effectively. 1,000 credits is $10. All you need to understand. I wouldn't consider that microtransactions. That's macro transactions. That's a McDonald's Big Mac. Like that's a fucking meal at that point. And then people started asking, hey, can you sell cosmetics in the community market like you couldn't too? Highly doubt it. To which my boy praise this man. Rising Storm 2. That's my favorite Tripwire game. No, you can't do that. That's unfortunate. But this question was asked. The answer is no. No, you cannot, unfortunately. Um, then other stuff was said, and whatever, doesn't matter. I'll reiterate, free updates is not the same as the game being free. Deleting my post not stop from saying this. Molly is getting mad at this point because Molly then goes on to be like, hey, it's not what was said, yada yada yada, getting back at this guy. It doesn't really matter. Point is basically, at launch is concerning to me about the addition of those things later, like maps and guns. Yeah, I don't like that. Anyways, I responded saying, "Hey, I can't help but notice you ignore the FOMO and the rotating shop. Like this statement here. I'm trying to throw Molly a bone. Like, hey, give the information about the shop, please. Like you talked about it in depth. You're a developer. This game has a lot of negative press around it right now. Do a good thing here and bring up all the content about the shop. And what does Molly do? Not that. Molly did not do that. Molly said, I didn't think it was my place to answer if this game is microtransaction or FOMO or not. Molly, Molly, you didn't feel it was your place to comment on if it was microtransaction heavy or not, but you ignored the larger conversation that was going on around the cosmetics. The microtransactions, which are really macro transactions, if we're being honest. Those bundles are 1,500 credits, which is $15, which is a 20 pack of nuggets with change to spare for a drink. So, Molly, because I'm not going to respond to this as a comment, because you're just going to ban me and delete what has been said, I'm doing this as a video, which I will publish to the Steam page, and I will be contacting, the Tripwire team and being like, hey, get settle this bitch down, fucking chill. This is not how you act, and we'll get into what's so wrong in a minute because I showed it at the start. But Molly's out of pocket. It's basically you didn't think that it was your place to comment on it, but you did comment. You did in fact comment, and you said, "I assume the developer's opinion of such things was not what the author was asking for. The author was asking pretty clearly about all monetization, but was specifically concerned about how it was in Killing Floor 2, which you left out half of it. Just because they pinned it, as I said earlier, does not mean the answer was full or correct or not misleading in any way. So I decided to offer information about the microtransactions and link to more details for the OP to decide for themselves. As I said, that link does not contain the information about the shop. It doesn't. It has nothing to do with the shop. It's just about the battle pass mechanics, however you want to call it, supply pass or whatever. It doesn't matter. If you were looking for more info about the shop, yes, there are cosmetic options that rotate regularly, but I am not aware of any plans to stop regularly rotating them, just in case you missed them. Again, Fortnite does the same thing, but their rotation's like multiple years for some of those cosmetics. So it's like, hey, let's just slow down, Molly. I asked you, can't help but notice you didn't bring it up. And then you immediately got defensive about it, and I'm like, okay, I don't think I like you very much, Molly. Now my boy Yashiro, or whatever the fuck his name was, I am not looking at it, but him I like. Anyway, basically I said exactly what I said. I'm like, hey, first off, you said you didn't think it was your place, but you did you did respond, and the link doesn't mention the shop. It brings up Nightfall credits. It says the same information about the supply pass. Doesn't talk about the shop. I said, so regardless if the shop was even mentioned or if it's heavy monetization, a rotational shop is a form of FOMO mechanic. And then I explained it doesn't matter who pinned it, comment itself is misleading. There's already a lot of bad press about this game. And I'm like, the concern is the cosmetic DLC torrent had been in 2, and that was mentioned as I showed in this thread already. So Molly had to ignore all of the other content that was put in this thread and all the statements that were made talking about this. That's a problem. Anyways, carrying on, I'm like, it's a valid concern. Um, why I brought it up, it looks bad, and the cosmetic shop is very heavily monetized, but at least it's not an $80 game. Technically, you can spend $80 and you get the entire first year's worth of battle passes and 3,000 credits, which is 2 bundles. You get 2 bundles. Not great. Doesn't matter. Anyways, this guy basically says, I don't even care about the cosmetic shops. I just don't want him to add modes and maps and shit. And Dr. Meepy, credit to him, he'll come back up in a minute. Because we kept talking, me and Dr. Meepy, and I'm like, hey, it's fair, but a lot of people do care about it. It's a big issue if it's left out by a developer, particularly when the game has this level of attention on it. And it's like, I don't really think they've said that much about it. Every once in a while someone says they lied about promising to pay a DLC, and they quote the DLC will not be cosmetic, will be cosmetic only, which is already a thing. It's like there's no official statement about locked guns, and I can't find one. I think they're avoiding the topic. They kind of are. They keep saying, "Oh, we're not going to do that at launch." I don't like that. Don't do that. I don't like that. Anyways, somebody gave me clever. Uh, I don't like the mental gymnastics aspect of that, but I do have to say that at least it wasn't a clown, which means they're not calling me a goober for saying this. The omission was not the issue, right? Or I'm sorry, the omission was the issue. What was said was not the issue. Ollie made the choice to explicitly respond to the question with information about one form of monetization that's less expensive and is more likely to be viewed favorably, and not bringing up the other in any capacity, and responding that the link mentions the shop when it does not. Mind you, Molly did not explicitly say the link mentions the shop, but if we go back to what was said, because this is going to come up later, where was it, Molly? I decided to instead offer some information about the microtransactions and a link to more game details. You do not have to explicitly bring something up if you're responding to somebody who is now talking about the shop. I mentioned you did not bring up the shop. And if we go back, because it's still pinned here at the top, reminder, here are more details about our monetization and post launch content approach. The implication is not that it's exclusively about the Nightfall Pass, which is where my issue is, Molly. It is, you are omitting it knowingly or not. Do not do that. Anyways, let's go to third page here. I tried doing it up there at the top and it didn't want to work. Anyways, at the end of the day, we weren't given an answer by the publisher regarding gameplay content being locked behind a paywall. I think them responding to your question this way puts more fuel on the fire than nothing at all. Props to him. He gets it. He sees what I'm saying. Molly, you can't do this. You cannot be aggressive towards people. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. We haven't really seen them explicitly say that they'll never do it, just that they won't be doing it at launch. So, anyways, we kept talking. It's like, I think it's definitely gonna happen. And I agree. It probably is. I almost guarantee it does. There's no way they don't. I don't trust it these days. Anyways, and I'm like, hey, everybody praised Helldivers 2 for, not doing time limited passes, but they just locked weapons and shit behind a paywall. Like it's not good. Don't do that. I don't like that. Anyways, I'm like, I have all these other concerns, and I'm like, I remember back in the day when this wasn't how gaming worked, and it was kind of better that way. When it was actual microtransactions and not you could buy a fucking, entire meal at McDonald's for that price. It doesn't really matter. Anyways, we kept talking about stuff, and it's like doesn't really matter. Anyways, this is back where we started, right at the beginning, with Molly's comment 4 hours ago. This was earlier this morning. Um, Basically, I was saying like the omission was the issue, not what had been said by other people. Molly made the choice to explicitly respond to the question about one form of monetization. That's incorrect. I said that the link in my original reply mentions the currency and that the math means you can earn yada yada yada. That's why the answer is placed as a direct reply to the quote of the question. Molly, are you the original poster? Can you determine that's why that guy put it there? You're supposed to know your shit about this, right? You're the developer, you're community moderator, but Steam doesn't use moderator and developer separately. They just say developer. Molly, that's not you can first off, you can't say that definitively. And second off, everybody else in the thread was for the most part talking about the cosmetics. The original guy was not told about it, clearly doesn't speak English as well as me and you. So when a developer says something, they're going to treat it as fact. They're going to treat it as true, which is why earlier when I said you cannot uh, use kind of like the explicit, pinned comments, statements as a explicit truth of the matter. This is what the microtransactions are. You left it out. The implications of your statements and responses is that there was more information in that link. There isn't. And basically we go on to say, I did not say the link specifically talks about the shop. I said it had more information, and it does. It has information about the microtransactions and other details about the game that people are usually interested in. No, it doesn't, Molly. Go check it for yourself because we will do that in a second here. It does not contain more information that people are interested in. Clearly, based on this thread, when people say microtransactions, we're thinking cosmetic shop and cosmetic bundles and the stuff from Killing Floor 2 because that's what was asked about, not the battle pass. So, no, you're wrong, Molly. You're just wrong. What I said in providing the FAQ link, here are more details about our monetization post-launch approach. That is what is in that FAQ and more. Do not twist my words. Molly, we're now showing in this video that I'm not twisting your words. Can't be twisting your words. I'm just going off of what the conversation is about, and you are leading things in a certain way. You are leading the monetization to be talking about the battle pass. Just because the guy pinned it did not mean that he intended that to be treated as truth, because it's not true. You left out half of it, and he pinned the half that you gave him. Clearly, the guy doesn't speak English, or girl, doesn't speak English very well. So they're going to take what you say as fact. The rest of us that do speak English here are not talking about the battle pass, because that's not what our concern is. And you know that. I think you know that. Anyways, do not twist my words. I'm not, Molly. I'm not twisting your words. But I'm not going to respond in the comment section because you seem very trigger happy on banning people because you have that power as a developer and a moderator for the forum. So I'm just going to make it as a video. You can't get rid of it, no matter how hard you try. So, for longevity's sake. Anyways, let's go check out that link because that is. Can I open it this way? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Let me open it up here. Bam! So let's just take a look, right? He's developer and his publisher. Tripwire Interactive is developer and publisher of Killing Floor 3, is being handled by our partners at PlayOn. You know, what type of game is it? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. It's just, stuff. You're talking about the game. Anyways, where when can I play? On all platforms, July 24th. How much does it cost to pre-order? Talk about the pre-order. Digital editions. This is where they talk about credits and what comes with the game, and then this is the version I bought because I wanted all that shit. Because if I'm gonna pay $80, I better get all the content. Yada yada yada. Here's how you can do it. This is where what Molly was talking about and directly copied comes from. Meaning Molly knows what's in this article and is being intentionally deceptive about it. I don't know if that's Molly's choice or if Tripwire's telling Molly to do this. But Molly leaves it out for a reason. Now, I can't say what the reason is, but I don't like the implication. What are this and this and this and this is exactly what Molly copy and pasted into that thread. We hear stuff about what it's talking about. We hear the specs that are needed. What are we looking at for the Xbox and the PlayStation and yada yada yada. I don't like this because this is where it's basically, oh, the game is not technically offline playable, really, not really. Okay, you can do it, but your progress doesn't save, so it's like it's not really playable. Doesn't really matter. Anyways, as we keep going, anti-cheat, DRM, who are the specialists? How are skills unlocked? Can multiple players choose the same specialist? What are the restrictions on weapons and stuff? What skills can be unlocked? This is actually not all true now. They've changed a lot of this, but can you customize how they look? Yes, you can. This is the first time that we even mention, you know, the shop really in this, with additional purchasable options. That's the shop. And as we keep going, does it have upscaling? What's the resolutions? How can I expect the game to run? Yada yada yada. What about mods? Mods are super important. Whatever. Our player hosted servers is available. We are not going to be doing that. yada yada yada. So Molly, you fucked up because now all the information is visible. Everybody else in the thread was talking about it, saying, "Hey, we don't see you talking about the shop. And we're all talking about the shop, but you aren't. Why? Why are you being hostile? And why are you only talking about the battle pass? I don't like the implications, Molly, and I don't like the tone you're taking up with me by implying that I am being misleading in any way. Because everybody else, and need I remind you, Molly, even the other people in the thread don't exactly like the way you're talking. People are not happy with you about that because I said, "Hey, you left this out." And then when I bring it up, your response to me is, "That's not what I said. That's not what I was talking about. That's yeah, you're twisting my words." No, Molly. No, I wasn't. You decided to steer the conversation one way, and it's obvious that wasn't what they were asking. Yeah, they pinned it. That doesn't make what they pinned a good pin, though. As I've explained, everybody else, as we can see, was not talking about the battle pass. We were talking about the cosmetics and if the battle passes are going to contain paid content that's gameplay modifying, like guns and maps, as was the concern with Killing Floor 2. If you wanted to not be misleading, you would have said what you and I'll pull it up because you props to you. It was said right here. That is what you should have had in your initial response. If you were trying not to be um, deceptive and you were trying to just answer the question, what's the content, post launch going to look like? That's what you should have said. Because the concern was clearly not about the battle pass. Based on everything else we've seen, nobody was worried about the battle pass. We were worried about gameplay impacting content and the microtransactions of a battle pass and a shop being in the game. That's what people who speak English, primary language English, were worried about in this thread. But you ignored that. And when I called you out on it, I said, "Hey, talk about the shop." That's basically what I was saying. I was like, "Hey, there's already some bad optics, right now. Talk about the shop. Bring it up. Talk about it." You decided to get defensive, like I was calling you out personally. I tried to be nice, Molly. I tried. You're a horrible moderator. Because this game is getting bad press right now. And when it comes out, this forum is going to be super negative. I can tell. People aren't happy already. They're still not happy. They've been unhappy with this game. So when it finally comes out and the general public starts playing it, I don't know how well you're going to be able to handle things. Because I think you're going to be a ban happy bitch. And I don't like that. So I'll be uploading this to the game's forum instead of responding in a comment to you, Molly, because I don't like the way you act. Other people clearly are seeing the way you act as well, and are not happy with it either. So I'm gonna leave it at that. До свидания, arrivederci. Get the fuck out of here.